Hi there, we're in the Brussels Signal studio. My name is Justin Stairs and you're watching episode 2 in our elections coverage special series going out at midday every day this week. We're here today to talk about migration, immigration, one of the most controversial subjects across Europe and especially here in the EU capital. Why? Well, there are a variety of reasons. First and foremost, perhaps, because a lot of people are dying. People dying at sea, men, women, and children trying to reach the southern shores of Europe. Number two, it's a demography issue and a work issue. Some people say we need more migrants. Why? Because Europe's getting older. In fact, by the end of the century, Europe's population is going to be in decline. Thirdly, and perhaps most controversially, there is an integration issue. Some people say we don't want certain types of people because they don't integrate into our European societies. They have a different way of living. Other people say that's a racist attitude. What do you think? What can be done? Can anything be done? Let's take a look.
Immigration is one of the main reasons for conflict between EU parties. The number of people arriving in Europe, whether legally or illegally, has been growing steadily over the last decades, with multiple countries seeing major surges. Migration is commonplace in all societies, but not in living history has Europe seen the movement of people on this scale. While the number of arrivals has ebbed and flowed over the last decade, the general trajectory appears to be upward, with even recent years of relatively low migration being far beyond the historical norm of the continent. Demographic issues remain an inescapable fact. While European women maintain fertility rates of around 1.4 children per woman, countries on other continents, especially Africa, have birth rates over twice as high. Should European policy not change, this trend appears certain to accelerate migration in the future. The rapid influx of both legal and illegal migrants has caused economic problems. Many European countries, especially those in the south, have struggled to integrate all newcomers into the labour market. Consequences are not only economic. As immigration rapidly changes the face of European societies, the bloc has encountered more political and social issues, as the ideologies and identities of the continent's new residents come into contact with others. Migration is seeing Europe become rapidly more Islamic. The American think tank Pew Research Center put the European Muslim population at 14% by 2050. One of the countries most affected will be France. Some are in favour of the arrivals. Commissioner for Home Affairs, Ylva Johansson, calls for about 2 million people per year to arrive in Europe. The president of the Spanish Central Bank said that the country needs 25 million immigrants over the next 25 years. Belgium has seen its native population decline at a rate of 40,000 people per year for the last 10 years. EU leaders have seen migration as a way of kicking the birth rate issue down the road, though some countries, such as Hungary, refuse to accept such a policy as a viable solution. Immigration has become one of the most important topics of debate and will continue to be so during the next legislature. Some politicians have recently launched calls for remigration, the mass relocation of migrants back to their countries of origin. However, the impact of such policies appears to be up in the air as hundreds of thousands of immigrants continue to arrive. Everything points to the fact that immigration to Europe will continue to increase despite the authorities' limited attempts to control the flows. Is Europe at risk from immigration? Or is it immigration that will save the continent, as some leaders proclaim?
Okay, so that's setting the scene for us. Let's go over to our guests. We have Antonio O'Mullony, who is the director of La Gaceta, which is an online publication in Spain. We also have Konstantinos Bogdanos, who some of you might know from the Brussels Signal website. He's director of Mea Culpa, the news website in Greece. Hello there, gentlemen. Now let's start, please, with a quick rundown of your particular speciality, which is your country, the country you know best. Antonio, what is the situation, briefly, please, in Spain today?
Well, hello, and thank you for having me. The situation is mass migration is a major issue in our country. It's very important, not only when it comes to the election, but also every time, because we are actually physically the southern border of the U.S. of the UN, sorry, of the EU, and not only across the sea, but also in Africa as well. Ceuta and Melilla are the two autonomous cities in Africa, and we have a huge pressure when it comes to migration. Not everyone, not all the migrants stay in Spain, but they come here, they arrive here, and our government and also the Socialist Party and also the People's Party are not openly against mass migration.
They're not against these arrivals. Okay, is that the same thing as saying they are for more migration, or they just don't say anything?
Oh, well, they don't say. I mean, they support mass migration, illegal migration actually, but they don't support laws. They don't pass laws against it. Not only in Madrid but also in Brussels, as you know. And here in our country, they just they pretend to oppose each other, but at the end of the day, they vote the same. And we are receiving more and more migrants in Ceuta, in Melilla, and also in the Canary Island, as you know. So we are struggling actually nowadays, and it's a major issue on the street, especially not on the media, but on the street. It's a real problem.
Konstantinos, you're in Greece. That's another frontline country. What's the latest there?
Well, thanks for having me. Good to be with you. Together with inflation, poverty, things are not going well for the Greek people in the supermarket. Immigration is number one when it comes to issues of concern as tracked by opinion polls. Greece is the front line. Greece is a small country, relatively to like the biggest European nations. It has a population of around 10 million. Greeks have a very low fertility rate. The Greek nation is not reproducing, and this seems to be of no concern for the Greek EPP government, which cares more about alternative forms of LGBTQ families and the like. And it seems that the Greek government, which has been stated explicitly by the Greek Prime Minister, is aiming at solving the demographic problem of Greece by an influx of people from Central Asia or Africa. Well, this creates big problems which are not only related to security or public safety. I mean, these are the evident things, but there is also an issue about preserving the prevalent culture here in Greece, which is a Western culture and the Christian culture. And it looks like the Greek nation is changing in front of our very eyes. This is happening fast, and this is happening also against the will of the Greek people. The New Democracy ruling party, the EPP party, is acting in a very hypocritical manner. I mean, I'm totally with Antonio with what he said. On one hand, they say that this is a matter of concern, but on the other hand, they do all they can, like bilateral agreements with Pakistan, so as to bring more and more people in. And, well, this does not go down well with Greeks.
Okay. Now, you touched on a key point there, and that is birth rates. Now, it is statistically proven that Europe is getting older as a continent. There will be fewer and fewer young people, and it's a trend that looks like is only going to get worse. And in fact, if you go forward a couple of decades, not only will Europe be older, but Europe will actually start to decline. Now, from what you've just been saying, Konstantinos, I mean, you think that the answer is to get the Greeks to make more babies, right? But is it going to be that easy? As you've just mentioned, there's a poverty problem in Greece. So how are people going to have more babies? How are you going to reverse this trend in an economy that's in decline? What do you say?
Well, this is all about doing what you can with the money that you have. So, for instance, it is an option of the Greek government whether it will spend the money on handouts on immigrants or it will follow a policy such as the one that has been followed by the Viktor Orban government or by the former government of Poland, which did bear fruit. I mean, let me just give you an example. The other day, a woman, a pensioner, an old lady, went to the Prime Minister, one of his public appearances, and said, "Prime Minister, I'm hungry. I get 440 euros a month as a pension." Well, the average Pakistani or Somali or Afghan in Greece gets 450 euros as a handout of pocket money a month. So it's not about being poor or being richer. It's about caring for the Greek people, caring for the indigenous people. It's about not wishing to embark on a policy of demographical substitution.
Antonio, what's it like in Spain? Is the debate about fertility going on or not?
It's a growing, but it's still too small debate. We have the lowest birth rate on earth. In Spain, we are very old population, and there are no politics such as in Hungary, where birth rate is being drastically improved and promoted by the government. It hasn't happened here, and we also have migration from Latin America, which is a natural migration, I would say. There is no cultural shock. They come here. We share many values, religion, language. They just come here. They are almost at home. It happens the same when we, the Spaniards, go to work in Buenos Aires or Mexico. It's not. There's not. That's natural, and at the same time it happens, we have low birth rate and natural migration. Let's say the government is promoting another migration, which comes from the north of Africa. They claim they are refugees, that we are saving people from the war, but at the end of the day, those people don't come from a war. They don't escape. They are young men that come here to make jobs that Spaniards don't want to do, cheap jobs, to change not only our population but also our job market, our the physical view of our cities. And the point is, we have two solutions, we have two alternatives. We have the birth rate as every country, but we also have the, let's say, natural Latin American migration, which we don't promote that much.
Okay. You've touched on 2 points there. Well, one is culture shock, which I'd like to come back to. But before we do, let's hear what the European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, had to say about one partial, let's say, solution to the problem, and that is walls. I know this is an issue in Spain, if I'm not mistaken, in Ceuta and places like this, where there are, is that right, Antonio? There are actually fences up in Ceuta, is that correct?
The government just improved them, let's say, a few years ago, but not anymore. And we suffer waves of migration sent by Morocco from time to time.
Okay, let's hear what the Commission President has to say.
And I was very clear that there is a long-standing comment in the Commission and with the European Parliament that there will be no funding of barbed wire and walls.
Okay, so Konstantinos, as you just heard, Mrs. von der Leyen says walls and barbed wire will not be supported, at least not from EU funds. This is also an issue in Greece. I mean, is border walls, fences, is that going to work?
Well, we have a land border with Turkey. And on this land border, we actually faced a proper invasion back in 2021, which was headline news all over Europe. After this, the Greek government embarked on building a fence, on building a wall, and as the Greek government has boasted, although it never finished the job, this wall has been partially funded by the European Union, and Mrs. Ylva Johansson has also visited this wall. Listen, we are facing a hypocrisy from the ruling elites. What is happening is that they are lying to everyone. They are lying to progressives, saying that, listen, no, we're not like Donald Trump, we're not like build the wall people. And then they're lying to conservatives, saying that, listen, we will cater for your needs and we will help build the wall. And what is happening at the end of the day is that numbers are up. We have record numbers of immigrant influx in Greece during the last couple of years. The job is never finished, the job is never done, and things are changing vastly in front of our eyes. Our nations are dying and we are being substituted.
Okay, and now before we tackle that point, I want to go to another video. This is, you just mentioned Commissioner Johansson. She is the Home Affairs Commissioner here in Brussels and therefore in charge to a large extent of migration policy. Here she is making the distinction between legal and illegal immigration. Let's take a look at that video.
I think we all share in the room the willingness to move away from irregular arrivals towards regular migration, where we can have an orderly migration management. So, for example, for people in need of international protection, I could announce today that 15 member states, have pledged to give protection to 40,000 Afghans. And I think this is an impressive act of solidarity, being ready to welcoming 40,000 more Afghans for resettlement or humanitarian admission or via evacuation. And this is important. So these, to prevent irregular arrivals, goes hand in hand with also investing in legal ways to come to the European Union. So I'm not mainly thinking about humanitarian corridor when I talk about legal migration. I'm mainly talking about labor migration. And I think when you look at the nationalities that are arriving right now, many of those just want to come and earn some money and to be able to take part in our labor market. And we need them on our labor market, but we don't want them to come this way on the irregular routes. So that's why, in parallel to reaching out to countries of origin to prevent the departures and to take back the citizens that are not allowed to stay, in the same way we also invite on in legal ways for especially for labor migration.
Okay, Antonia, now I don't want to lose sight of the human tragedy. Obviously, as you know, as we all know, there are lots of people actually dying crossing the Mediterranean. It doesn't even make the news anymore a lot of the time. And one obvious question is, what are we going to do about it? I mean, are you suggesting that the European forces such as Frontex do not actually rescue these people? And what would you think should happen if they actually make it into Spain? I mean, I mention this because, as you know, in the UK, they've struck this deal with Rwanda now, Italy and Albania. There is talk about processing migrants outside of the EU. Is that something that might work for Spain, Antonio?
That's something that has to work for Spain. That's a paramount issue. I mean, we are not talking anymore about that tragedy in the sea. Thousands of people die every year trying to come to Europe. They've been promised hope, and sometimes they come, they don't find hope. They don't find a better life. They just pay all their savings to cross the desert, to cross the sea, and arrive here in Europe, yes, to look for a better life, but sometimes they don't find it, and many of them die in the sea. We here in Europe, we try and we from the virtue signaling way of life we use, we don't prefer to give them the opportunity to find a better option in their country or to find a way to come here legally from their country. We just claim to help them, to let them enter our continent. No borders, said von der Leyen. The candidate of the Socialist Party, the Spanish Socialist Party, in these European elections, said the other day that some of us prefer walls instead of co-living. But actually, it's not about coexist. We need borders, we need walls, let's say, in case we need them, to live here safely and we don't need walls to let to keep those people outside Europe. We need walls to be safe inside Europe. We, the Europeans, but also the people that come here for a better life, for work here, to work here.
Okay, Konstantinos, same question for you. Number one, what are we going to do about all the people dying, including women and children, who try to make European shores? And number two, what about the idea of processing asylum seekers or even immigrants outside of the European Union? It seems to have had an effect. I mean, you read about migrants not wanting to go to the UK, and you also hear about a reduction in the number reaching Italy. I don't know if these agreements have actually had an impact, but what do you think? Over to you, Costantino.
Well, Italy is a mess. Meloni has not delivered. Let's begin with this one. Then, as far as the second question, the second leg of the question is concerned, this whole debate started in Bucharest at the summit of the European People's Party. And then Weber tried to appear conservative when he also announced that Ursula is going to be the Spitzenkandidat for head of the European Commission. But in truth, most of the EPP prime ministers and most of the EPP leaders are against it. For instance, the Greek leader, and we're a frontline country, is outspokenly against it. The other day he said that we are totally against sending immigrants to third countries such as Rwanda or whichever else. Now, the word again is hypocrisy. When it comes to the humanitarian side that you mentioned, I mean, how about Christians in Sudan? How about Christians in Nigeria? There's a genocide there. How about Armenia? How about Christians in the Middle East? Why do we care about some people and then we just don't care about others? And speaking of those populations, why? Because it's not a matter of humanitarian perspective, but it is also not a matter, and we're going to discuss this further during the show, it's not a matter of feeding the economy with unskilled labor. Because if you want to feed the economy, there are other places where you could invite people from. I'm adamant about the fact that Europeans, conservative Europeans, we are not racist. I mean, Antonio spoke about the natural immigration from Latin America. No racism there. There have been 2 decades of, I would say, natural immigration from the former Eastern Bloc and mainly Orthodox countries to Greece. We had no trouble with them at all. Even with Albanians, who were a bit of a seclusionist culture, we managed to figure things out. But it is not the same as having areas downtown Athens which are ruled by the Sharia law. This is not about the economy. This is not about humanitarian perspective. It's about changing the fundamentals of our societies, and it's about bringing down the West. People have realized this. And this is what those European elections are all about.
Okay, well, in fact, many people
Managing,
have said. Sorry, go on.
managing to resist.
Now, Antony, Konstantinos has touched on perhaps one of the key elements of the debate, and that is the cultural clash. Now, some people are emphasizing the perceived incompatibility between certain types of cultures. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate because in the Brussels Sickness studio there was a socialist former minister from Spain, as it happens, and when I put this issue to him, he said that essentially this is a rule of law issue. When you have a law, you have to make sure that it is applied, irrespective of where people live. I mean, what do you say to that, Antonio? I mean, surely if the police can ensure that the rule of law is respected, that all these problems disappear?
Well, I don't think so. In fact, the law can be bad for the people. And it must be changed. It is a normal excuse from the Socialist Party and from the People's Party to claim it is the law and we have to we have to comply. But it's not about the law, it's about reality, as Konstantinos says. It is changing our culture, it's changing our countries, and it's changing in just a generation, probably in 15 years. Europe has changed. Many areas in our cities, many areas in some regions in our countries are ruled by the Sharia, and it's not about the law. The law will not make people adapt. In fact, if we are paying them to come and to stay here without working, there are a million unemployed immigrants in Spain. 1 million. They didn't came just they didn't find a job, but they found ways of financial solutions for them, paid by the Spanish workers. I mean, there's no way that system can be can be stable across time. There's no way that that can be supported by the people, and there is a growing concern. Around 70 people in Europe, 70% of the Europeans are don't see this is working. There is no, because in the name of multiculturalism, we are creating cities which are the same. It doesn't matter if you walk across Athens, Madrid, or Brussels. You find the same stores, the streets are quite similar, the pedestrian streets, but you also find the same neighborhoods in which 15 years ago there were old people, families, and now you cannot walk through those streets in just a short time. So it's not about the law. The law may say whatever, but it's not working.
Okay, Konstantinos, would you like to address the rule of law issue?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, what we saw during those last weeks in Germany is very telling of a tragedy, that the law does not apply equally to all citizens. It appears, and I'm all with Antonio in this one as well, it appears that when it comes to indigenous, Christians, ethnic Europeans, well, then the law applies and then the law is enforced. For instance, in Germany, you had this whole viral issue regarding the Deutschland and Deutsch and Ausländer raus video, that music song of...
Right, this is the dance craze in which people sang a tune about foreigners, getting foreigners out. That's
Exactly.
what you're
Well,
referring to, right?
it is on a techno song, very popular in my generation around 20 years ago by Gigi D'Agostino, an Italian DJ, and everyone went mad and berserk over it when some German youngsters changed the lyrics saying Deutschland in Deutschen, Germany to the Germans, Ausländer raus. Foreigners out. And this became like hugely viral to the extent that those youngsters were prosecuted, the ones that they began this whole trend, this whole craze, and they were prosecuted on the grounds of the German sensitivity with regard to the constitution. Germany is a very particular place. But how about, for instance, that public Islamist rally calling for Germany to become a caliphate? Is there no problem with something like this? How about all those cases all around Europe? I'm certain that the same thing is happening in Spain as we speak, when the authorities are much more lenient to people who are of an immigrant background than to people who are ethnic Europeans or indigenous. If I enter a shop and shoplift something, if I'm Greek, I'm going to get in trouble. But if I am a refugee, most of them are not, then the system is going to be lenient on me. So those who speak of the rule of law are appalling liars. They don't care about the rule of law. If they did care about the rule of law, laws should be applied equally to everyone. This is the foundation of our liberal democracies, and it is a paradox that it is conservative nowadays that safeguard this liberal foundation.
Thank you very much. We're going to leave it there. Thank you, Konstantinos. Thank you, Antonio, for joining us. And that's immigration, just one of the subjects that the new European Parliament and the European Commission will have to deal with. It's not going to go away anytime soon. Thanks for watching. Come back for the next one.